Okay, so let me show you guys how I set up this wood splitter right here. I've got the lip, the bottom lip of the wood splitter on a 2x10, so that way it's slightly angled up. And then I have it attached with the pin right there. Then I put some strap around the table there, so that way the wood splitter doesn't move around, and I use some 4x4 blocks to keep the wheel from moving around. It's been working pretty good for me. And I will use the mini skid steer as a platform to move the logs close to me, so I can just roll it over. So I'm gonna show you guys how I do these bigger logs right here. As you can see, this setup works okay, but then what I have to do is actually step on the pallet to be able to move that big log around, which is not something I want to do every time, especially for those bigger logs. It works fine for the smaller logs, but the big ones are actually hard to move. So then I had to think of something else to make it easier for me. So one thing about having the machine up high like this vertically is that for those bigger logs, it prevents you from always being down closer to the ground to split the wood and getting back up to grab another piece of log, which can become tiring after a while. One thing I like to have is have my pallet next to my work area, so that way I don't have to touch the wood again. It's a whole lot easier than to toss it on the ground and having to pick it back up again, because it gets tiring once you have to pick the wood one more time. So as you can see, the smaller logs are easier to move around compared to the big logs. I can just grab it and move it over to the table. For the bigger logs, it's not as easy. Alright, so this one is a pretty big log that I had to cut. So these logs right here, they are not as easy to move around by hand. Alright, so this big log right here is not easy to move around, so I have to be very careful when I place it on the pallet, because I just want to make sure I don't hurt my back. Even this smaller log right here is actually heavy. So after cutting up this big log right here, I had to move it over to the pallet. And this right here is actually not the easiest way to do it. So then what I did is actually move the log sideways, and I rolled it onto the new pallet. It's still a lot of work trying to manhandle this big chunk of logs. This log was so heavy that it actually pushed me off the platform. Luckily that log didn't fall on me, because that would have been a bad day. So I had a lot of wood left out there, and I wanted to cut everything on the table, but that was not gonna be ideal because it was gonna take me too much time. So I decided to just go ahead and start cutting everything on the ground. That's when I pulled out the MS362 and sharpened the chain on it to make sure it was sharp, because I knew I was gonna have a lot of wood to cut. Okay, so that chain is now sharp. Breakers should be okay. I don't have to take this down at all. I'm setting it at 30 degrees and then 55 angle on top here. So I'm gonna put it on the MS362 and see how it goes and how it looks. Alright, so I'm putting the chain back on after sharpening it, and I'm gonna test it out on a piece of log I got there. So the chain was cutting pretty good. It's actually throwing some pretty nice big chunk of chips. So I was pretty happy with the result. So the next day I went back and cut all the logs I had left out there, so I wouldn't have to touch the chainsaw again. So here I'm just using the Milwaukee chainsaw to actually mark exactly where I need to cut the wood, and then I'll be using the bigger chainsaw to go ahead and cut everything through. Now this is where having a grapple like cloud grapple is great for this application, because you can just have it hold the log while you're cutting. And here I'm just finishing off the cut using the regular chainsaw by Milwaukee. It's a pretty good chainsaw actually. This chainsaw actually works great for little small logs like this. I love using it because it's not so loud. I actually have about 5 of those 12.0 batteries, so I can actually run this chainsaw all day if I wanted to. But again, for the slightly bigger logs, I like to use the regular gas chainsaw. So here I'm trying to think of a way to make the job easier using the material I have on site. But what I came up with is I just went ahead and used the rails from a job, older rails from a job that I did, a deck job that I did last year. And I saved that wood because I knew I was gonna have a use for it one of these days. So here it is. I'm using it, and even if I scratch it, it doesn't matter because that's some old wood. So here it is. I'm spending like an entire day just cutting all those logs into pieces because I didn't want to have to split the wood, stop, go cut some logs, and split it again. So it took me pretty much a whole entire day to cut all these logs into pieces because I had to stop, go cook for my wife since we just had a newborn baby. I had to take care of her, and then I had to go pick up the kids from the bus, and then I had to come back and work on these logs again. So the next day, I had some help. My uncle actually called me up, asked me what I was doing. I was like, I'm just splitting some wood here. And he was like, I'm falling asleep here, so you need some help? I was like, yeah, come on through. I'll help you out. I was like, okay, come on. He was actually able to finish the whole piles of small logs right there. So it actually saved me a lot of time because I had some other things to do while he was splitting the wood. So in total, he was able to actually split 2 face cord of wood for me, which saved me a lot of time. The only thing I had left to do was just to stack up the wood once he got it all split up. So here I was trying to use the backhoe on my John Deere tractor to move each of those logs onto the pallet, because I had my pallet forks already hooked up on my mini skid, and I didn't want to have to change out attachment and back and forth. So after trying with the backhoe on the John Deere tractor, it actually didn't work that great, because there was just not enough reach for me to just use the backhoe on there. And actually I do have a grapple for this tractor, but right now there is something wrong with the macro switch on the handle itself, so I have to find that part. And it looks like they don't make that part for it. They actually you have to buy a whole actual new handle, which is like $100. So I'm gonna wait for now. And I'm actually gonna have to change the front seal of the wheel on this tractor, because it's actually leaking, as well as doing the brake recall at John Deere, because there's a recall where the brake pedal can actually break if you press it too hard. Okay, so after doing some thinking, I added a little bit of an extension over here. So I added this little table because some of these logs are too big, so it's got a slightly of an angle going up, so you actually lift the log towards the splitter over there. Now I just gotta try it out and put a little table right here, and then I'm gonna toss my logs on this table right here, so that way I'll pick it up later. I don't have to pick it up off the ground. So we'll see how that works out like. So the plan is to just go ahead and use the grapple, move the big rounds onto the table, then use the wood splitter to split those into 4 different pieces. Then I could move those pieces of firewood to the table next to me. So this process actually worked pretty well for me, because I didn't have to manhandle those logs and push them on the table. And all I have to do was just bring each log close to the table, and I'll just push it next to the wood and just split it right away. And it actually makes it very, once you split it, it's actually very easy to move around, you know. So I don't know why I didn't think about it, but then as you doing the process, you think about how to improve the way you're doing the job, and that's part of the learning experience on trying to get the best setup possible. Okay, so here's another angle on how I'm moving those logs around on the table. This log grapple right here by Cloud is actually one of my most used attachment lately. So pretty much I'm using my mini skid steer and the grapple as my log lift, since I don't have one of those very expensive wood splitters. Alright YouTube, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.